My husband and I, both 27, got married a few weeks ago, and he obviously is still upset about it, but I don't think I was wrong, so I thought I would ask here. We only gave plus ones to married couples, or if we knew the SO well. My husband has one childhood friend coming from out of state to attend. I've met him a bunch, but only his girlfriend of 3 years a few times because of the distance. I didn't want to give him a plus one, but my husband begged since he was traveling and didn't know anyone else at the wedding, and he didn't want him to be uncomfortable and have to travel alone. So I said fine, just to make him happy. Flash forward to the reception, and I see him with a girl I've never seen before. I asked husband what was up, and he told me that his friend and his girlfriend broke up a few days before the wedding, and since he had already RSVP'd for two, he brought a friend with him. I was angry since I made an exception for him, and I didn't want anyone random at my wedding, so I had one of the bridesmaids go to him and tell him he could stay, but can his date please go back to the hotel? This is a private event. He said okay and didn't make a fuss, but he left with her and didn't return. I thought everything was fine and had a great night. My husband found out about it the next day, and we got into an argument. He's mad because his friend is traveling, and I kicked him out without talking to him. I didn't kick him out, just his date. Now it's a few weeks later. My husband still brings it up from time to time, and his friend hasn't been answering his text. I felt bad, but it was my wedding, and I didn't want any strangers there. So am I the idiot? You gave him a plus one, and he used it, and then you were rude and revoked it during the reception. His plus one did nothing wrong. They didn't cause a scene or anything, and you got offended because she existed? Sorry, Bridezilla, but you are the idiot. You were so concerned about making the wedding perfect for yourself that you ruined it for your husband. Exactly. She had already agreed to a plus one. So tacky to revoke the invitation, especially when the guest is already at the wedding. Do you know who else I feel sorry for besides the embarrassed friend and his humiliated date? The poor bridesmaid, given the task of telling them to leave. I would have told OP to screw right off if that had been asked of me. Nope, Bridezilla indeed. I can only imagine what that poor woman will tell her friends when she returns. How was your weekend? Was the wedding fun? I got kicked out of it. Why? What did you do? Nothing, I just attended. OP, I wonder if your husband doesn't see you as a different person now. I'm guessing the plus one was pretty and thin, and Bridezilla couldn't handle it. OP, your husband's childhood friend traveled for your wedding to celebrate your day after his long-term girlfriend and he broke up. He understandably didn't want to travel alone or be at a wedding alone where he knew no one. You gave him a plus one and had paid for the head already, so he brought his allowed plus one. You need to offer your husband a massive apology. You also need to call his friend and offer him a massive apology for being such an idiot. My dad is white and my mom is black. Honestly, I don't look anything like my dad, so most people don't even think I'm mixed. We like to joke that I got his personality instead of his looks. People tend to say offhanded stuff to me about how I don't look how they think I'm supposed to. I'm used to it, especially since my dad ended up married to a white woman, so every time I'm with them, it looks like I'm the odd one out. I'm not afraid to correct people, but sometimes that gets exhausting, and I'll just play dumb instead. Grace and I had planned to get lunch together, and her boyfriend Isaac came along with us. She wants us to get to know each other better since she likes him, so I figured that's why she brought him. While we were having lunch, my mom's side of the family was brought up, and then Isaac said that it must have been a shock, to my dad at least, for me to end up so dark, since most mixed kids are lighter in complexion than I am. But then he said that at least I ended up with good hair, so I didn't lose out completely. Grace didn't speak up and say anything to him about it, so I pretended not to understand what he meant and asked what was so good about my hair and what he thought I was losing out on anyway. He got flustered and said, well, you know, most girls with your skin tone have curlier hair. So then I asked why he thought my hair was good, just because it wasn't that curly. He said he just felt like it looked nicer. So I asked why he thought that textured hair didn't look just as nice. He kept blubbering out excuses and digging the hole even deeper for himself. and finally Grace told me to cut it out and leave him alone. I paid for my part of the lunch and left after that. I didn't tell my dad or Hannah what happened, but it's obvious enough that Grace is mad at me. My dad asked that she and I solve whatever the problem is, because he hates seeing us be so tense around each other. Grace told me she was angry because I made her boyfriend look like a jerk by playing dumb. I told her that I didn't have to make him look like a jerk because he already was one, but she said that I drew the problem out more than necessary and made it worse than it needed to be, when I could have just told him that he messed up. I mean, I could have just done that, but I don't think it should be my job, and I feel like it was probably more effective to get him to explain his logic out loud rather than have me tell him that he was being a jerk. Grace is insisting that I should have just told him point blank, and because I didn't, she thinks I'm the idiot. Edit. My dad just texted me to ask if something happened at lunch with Grace's boyfriend, so when he and my stepmom get home later, I'll tell him what happened since it seems like he already knows something did. Also, my reluctance about telling my dad and Hannah isn't because I want to protect Isaac or anything. It's because Grace is my stepsister and I care about her. I know she really likes this guy, and I only feel bad because even though I didn't ruin anything for her, it feels like I did. The situation just sucks, I guess. Not the idiot. You did him a big favor by humiliating him and forcing him to reflect on his racism. If you'd called him a jerk, he could have just got mad at you and moved on. Instead, you dragged it out, and he'll keep feeling it. Maybe it won't change him, but there's a chance it will. You don't owe him anything, but you went above and beyond in giving him an opportunity for personal growth. Whether or not this was your intent, you were exceedingly generous. Hopefully he'll learn from it. Grace is angry because she has to either admit she's willing to accept that her boyfriend has these beliefs, unfortunately common for people to think this way. She and her boyfriend may both need to work on their own beliefs and maybe end things. Probably not unless this was a tip of the iceberg comment. And Grace is the bigger idiot for not calling it out herself. OP should call Grace out for being an enabler. Update. I told my dad and Hannah what happened when they got home, and they both told me that I did absolutely nothing wrong. Hannah said that she talked to Grace about it, and my dad said that Isaac was no longer welcome anywhere near our house. Dad also gave me a mini motivational speech where he reiterated that I look perfect just the way I am, and that the colorist and texturist bigots have no place in our family or our home. Grace drove back to campus a while ago, so Hannah will call her later to talk with her about what happened. A little background. My 37 male, fiance, 30 female, and I have been butting heads about money. I make about double what she does, but ask her to pay for her half of our very reasonable mortgage, $540 each, and utilities, $150 to $200 each. We both work full-time. She makes about $60K and has a pretty big school loan balance that costs her $850 a month. When it's all said and done, this leaves her with about $45 a day budget. I also asked her to split things like groceries, which we put on a joint credit card in my name. Lately, she's been talking about how low her bank account is and how stressed out she is. She does things she likes, such as going to yoga multiple times a week, going to therapy weekly, which I encourage, eating healthy foods, etc. She's taking this "I'm going to do what I want and not sacrifice my mental health and happiness for money" attitude. This is fine, but she said she might not be able to pay her personal card in full this month, which stresses me out. I use the extra money I make to help us do nice things like vacations. For the past 2 years, I've been taking most of my extra money to pay down our mortgage, which I should be able to pay off in the spring. I've also gone on a few vacations alone, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm not also using extra income for any fun. The main motivation for paying off the mortgage is to improve our lives by lowering our overall bills. I also plan on taking all the tax and whatnot after the mortgage is paid off, so she's only paying utilities. My position is she makes enough money to have a reasonable budget and should be able to stick to that. Being financially responsible is a very important thing to me. I've tried to talk to her repeatedly about this, but it always devolves into a fight about how I'm not in her position and how I have money to do whatever I want, etc. So, am I the idiot for expecting her to be able to pay basic bills and balance her income? You are the idiot. You're paying equally, but not equitably. If you make double, you should pay double. Split in relation to the amount you both make, not what you consider to be 50-50. Your fiance is struggling, and you're okay with it because fair? Too bad, so sad? That's life? Who knows? There's a power imbalance in your relationship, and you're on here looking for support to keep it that way. Why, OP? Don't you love her? You said you pay extra for your mortgage, but you can do that because she helps with half of a mortgage that will not benefit her if you all ever break up. You haven't even wifed her legally, but you're all about taking husband privileges. If your fiance was my child, my husband, their father, and I would have paid her rent in her apartment before we allowed her to put herself in this situation. I'm sorry your fiance didn't have anyone looking out for her like that. Tell her she's got a fierce woman upset on her behalf. Exactly. He's profiting from her help. He just keeps justifying the reason. But all I'm hearing is he wants her to cut down on things that bring her joy and her mental health, yoga and therapy, so she can continue contributing to his benefit. So yeah, the poor girlfriend seems very naive and blind to not see what's happening. And the only person who'll be affected if they break up is her. She needs to wake up. These situations are exactly why we don't need to be teaching Algebra 5.0 in high school, but financial literacy, mortgages, interest rates, equity, tax credits. It's unlikely this fiance has any idea how much he's being taken advantage of, because this idiot legit believes he's right to be doing this. My husband comes from a conservative background. I have to say that since my family are non-practicing Christians, he constantly criticizes them, saying they're hypocrites, and is always uncomfortable spending so much time with them. The one he doesn't get along with most is my sister. He thinks she's living carelessly and irresponsibly. I told him to keep his opinion to himself and told her to ignore him as a compromise. Christmas is usually spent with family. This year, my sister announced she wanted to bring her new boyfriend with her for Christmas. My husband's rather annoyed by this and said he wouldn't attend this year's Christmas celebration if my sister brought her boyfriend. I asked why, and he said it's because he makes him uncomfortable. He told me he'd go if I asked my sister not to bring her new boyfriend. I went to visit Mom and saw my sister there. I mentioned the possibility of my husband missing out on this year's Christmas celebration and asked her if she'd reconsider bringing her boyfriend. She asked why, and I said it made my husband uncomfortable. I explained that the family had known my husband for years, and it wasn't fair that he missed the event so her boyfriend of 4 months could come. She asked what she was supposed to do, and I asked if she'd reconsider bringing her boyfriend. He wouldn't care much about it anyway, compared to my husband. She nonchalantly said that maybe my husband shouldn't come if it's that big of a deal for him. I lashed out at her for saying that and told her that she had no respect or regard for my husband, a family member who's been considered family for years. She had an attitude, basically saying that it wasn't her problem. It escalated, and Mom urged me to go home, and I did. Utter silence on my husband's side, but Mom and Dad were upset with me for what happened and said that I was putting unnecessary pressure on my sister and making her feel guilty for the situation my husband created. They suggested I apologize, but I said I needed time to see what would happen. A fair number of the family, my dad's side, are pressuring my husband to come. They were shocked and upset after finding out he may not attend. He has a good relationship with them. You're kidding, right? You are the idiot, easily. You want others to conform to your husband's needs? Ha, screw off. It's your husband's problem, so he can skip. No loss. The rest of the family will enjoy a much better holiday. Wow, I can't believe you're even here to ask this. Of course, both you and your husband are idiots. He's trying to impose his background on your whole family, and you know that's wrong. It's not up to him to tell anyone who can or who cannot come to a holiday event that isn't in your own home. I can't believe you even had the gall to ask your sister and parents this. Your husband sounds like an insufferable idiot, and I wouldn't want to be around him at all. I'm guessing that everyone in your family is keeping their fingers crossed that he'll boycott the family celebration. This has probably given them a great idea for all future family events. Someone will be assigned to invite or bring an undesirable to the party, so your idiot husband will refuse to come. Do you know who's been in the family longer than your husband? Your sister. She shouldn't be uncomfortable because you bring your husband, and you bring him and he annoys her and makes her uncomfortable. You and your husband are clearly well matched too. You both have some cheek. I had to stop working early on in my pregnancy. Everybody knows it's a sensitive subject because I never wanted to stop working. To keep myself busy, I've been remodeling our home since I've wanted to do it for ages, but never had the time before. My brother-in-law and his fiance came for dinner last week, and she complimented some of the changes. While they were outside, she joked about how she was jealous that I got to sit around doing nothing all day, and if she had the time, their house would look nice too. She also joked about how she couldn't wait to be married so she could do the same. It made me feel crappy, and I got teary-eyed. When my husband came back, he asked me what was wrong, making me cry. I told him, and he was so angry that he told her to leave our house. My brother-in-law tried to calm everybody down, but my fiance told him to get out too. My in-laws asked us what had happened because my husband said we wouldn't be going to dinner the next day, as his brother and his fiance would be there. I was the one who explained, and now they're upset with her too. She thinks I told everybody on purpose to turn them against her, and my brother-in-law's angry because he thinks I didn't need to tell his parents. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They expected you to sit quietly at dinner and suck it up? Bluntly, screw that noise. Your soon-to-be sister-in-law was thoughtless in her comments, and it bit you at the moment, and her, when her thoughtlessness was discussed. You need an apology, and she needs to consider her words and how they might be received more carefully. It's only a joke if everyone thinks it's funny. There's no way she could have thought her nasty quip was a joke. If it were a joke, she wouldn't mind you telling people. Now she's trying to walk it back. Sometimes consequences suck. Everyone's the idiot here. Sister-in-law comments a little rudely, and OP's choice is to go nuclear and cry in front of her husband, which is obviously going to evoke an emotional reaction from someone that cares about her. And then the husband proceeds to go ballistic on two people before engaging maturely, and then doubled down and involved other family members in something that stemmed from a single comment. Everyone was so overdramatic, and you turned a molehill into a mountain before she even could.